I want to get into it with him about the Preds. We've got him on the line now. PK, how you doing?
I'm doing well, Eric. How are you?
Good, good. We know you're fashionable. We didn't know you were fashionably late, so here you are. We're finally happy to have you. And I got to ask you about the way you've been used by this Nashville Predators team. And what stands out to me, looking over your statistics, is that you go back to your first year in the NHL, 27% of your shifts started in the defensive zone. This year at even strength, more than ever before, you've started 57% of your shifts in the defensive zone. So can you please let us in on what your role is on this team, on a team that is loaded on defense with Yossi, with Ellis, with Ekholm, and obviously Emelin and Weber playing in the 5-6 spot. Can you give us an insight into how you've been used and how you view yourself on that team?
Yeah, well, first of all, I'll say that thank you for saying that I'm fashionable. You should see that I probably don't look as good when I got to wake up out of a nap to do a phone interview, but I'm still smiling just now, and that's what I did, actually. I was having a great nap, and then I said, oh, I got to get on with Eric. So I'm well-rested and ready for you, but you know what, Eric, our team, like you said, we got so many great defensemen, and I mean, when you look at the history of the Nashville Predators, they've always had great defensemen, but especially with where the game is going now and mobile defensemen that can pretty much do it all. I mean, we got 6 guys that can, and 4 guys really that obviously we know garner a lot of attention, but in regards to that, you know what, you do have to kind of break up assignments and give everyone something to kind of look at in their game to take pride in. And I think I've always been a guy that's played against the other team's top players every night, but also expected to be on the first unit power play to contribute offensively. And over my career, I've always been a guy who's been able to contribute offensively, but this being probably the best team that I've ever really played on and the best D-core that I've ever played with, seeing 3 other guys that can really put up the same numbers. I've been looked at to kind of play against the other team's top lines every night, and obviously, like you said, starting a lot of my shifts and the majority of my shifts 200 feet away from the opponent's goaltender is something that I do take pride in. And you know what, it's not easy, but I take pride in that, and I know how important those shifts are and those starts and those faceoffs are for our team and starting our offense and also playing defense, and that's been my role. But you know what, it doesn't seem to have really taken them, giving me the opportunity to not generate offense. We have great players that can finish, and I've been able to contribute that way also. So very happy to be in that role, but that's the trust that Peter Leviolet's kind of put in me, and I just try to take it and run with it.
PK, Donovan Bennett here. Apologize for interrupting the nap. It is National Napping Day. I don't know if you know, so I guess you have a good excuse. I thought you were just on West Indian time, and that's why you're late. So we appreciate you coming through.
That's awesome. That's great. You know what? That's great. That's a great excuse as well. So, if I'm going to fit into the stereotype, there you go. I got another reason as well.
There you go. You're welcome. You're welcome. But on the team that you're on right now, we were just talking about it. You guys run off 10 straight, and then Saturday night you dictate the play against the Devils in a game that hit a couple posts, you lose, and obviously you want the result. But what was the feeling like in the room after you played pretty well, but you didn't end up continuing the streak and getting the win?
Well, I mean, anybody that watched that game saw that, that kind of probably the last 10 minutes of the second and all of the third, we tilted the ice, and I think the ice was tilted 80-20, 80% of the chances and possession going our way and 20 going the other. But that's not taking anything away from the New Jersey Devils. They played a great game, and Heinze, who's a great coaches that team very, very well. Those guys are committed to a system, and they work extremely hard. So we got to give them credit because they did work hard, and they played the system correctly, and their goaltender made some timely saves. But ultimately, For that end of that second and all of the third, we were very, very happy with the way we played. And, if we throw that many chances at a team, we'll score, 4 or 5 goals in a period. But it just didn't happen for us, but we were able to extend it. And, when you get into overtime and shootout, anything can happen. And didn't go our way this time. But, for our team, we jumped into practice today, and we're excited about the opportunity to get back in the win column tomorrow.
Yeah, let's talk about the opportunity. Your team, you go back, you were a couple of wins away from the Stanley Cup. The main difference this year is the depth up front, and I want to talk to you about a couple of guys who maybe fly under the radar. One in particular, Kevin Fiala. Since Turris has come to your team, since Kyle Turris was traded from the Ottawa Senators to the Nashville Predators, Kevin Fiala has been one of the best players in the NHL, not talked about. Could you give us insight on what he does for your team? Because he was missing from that run last year when he went down with a broken femur.
Oh, he's one of the naturally gifted players, and I hate to say that because I feel that whenever anybody says that a player's naturally gifted, you take away from the work ethic and the hard work that a player puts in to kind of get better at their craft. And, but with him, how he's able to connect his talent and the way he sees the ice and how he puts it all together is pretty special. And we didn't have that, in the finals last year, and obviously Ryan Johansson as well. And I think those were obviously 2 critical losses for our team. But, seeing him this year, now he's come back and into form and his development, he's a game breaker. And, you're exactly right. He hasn't gotten maybe the attention that some of the other younger players have gotten in the league. But I tell you right now, he's one of the scarier players that defensemen see when he's coming down on you 1-on-1, 2-on-1. In any situation where he has time and space, he's going to make a play. And he's done that, the later part of last year in the playoffs for us last year and definitely all season this year. And that's why, he's been in our top 6 forwards and he's been one of our best forwards all season. As
we edge towards the playoffs here, PK, who's the one team in the West? I'm not saying that you guys are scared of anybody, but who presents the biggest challenge potentially from here to another run to the Cup?
Well, Eric, if you take a look at just forget the Western Conference, if you just look at our division, I mean, there's no easy team in our division. I mean, pick your poison. They all got the ability to skate, they have skill, and they have physicality. I'm talking Dallas, Winnipeg. I mean, even teams that aren't in Chicago's not in a playoff spot, right? So it's like you look at St. Louis, Minnesota. Any of these teams, I mean, it's tough. I mean, most teams would say that you wouldn't want to play any of those teams in a first round of a playoff series. Well, guess what? We may have to. You look at who we had to go through last year to get to the finals. It's not going to be easy. And for us, I think it's the way we play that gives us confidence, Eric. We know that we're going to play a team that's going to be fast, that's going to be skilled, that's going to be physical. Usually when you get that first round matchup, it's a team that's maybe on the outside looking in, barely squeaked in. Well, in the West, all these teams are very, very capable of doing damage in the playoffs and are contenders for a Stanley Cup. I mean, when you look at them, realistically, they are. So, I mean, all those teams scare me. All of them do. I mean, if you're not scared of teams, then then you're not really watching the games every night. You're not watching the NHL because anyone could beat anybody, and especially in our division. I mean, pick your poison. Like I said, I think if you're going to give any team an edge, you'd have to look at maybe Winnipeg or Dallas. I mean, both of those teams have kind of separated themselves from the pack a little bit from everybody else, especially Winnipeg. And, they're hungry. They haven't been in the playoff. They haven't been a playoff team every year, especially those core group of guys. And they want to do some damage, and they want to show that they're contenders as well. And I think that kind of showed our last meeting, and it showed in every game that they played this year. And they got some firepower. And Patrick Laine, if I'm going to talk about one player specifically, he's been talked about a lot, and rightfully so. I mean, he's a 40-goal scorer, and a legitimate 40-goal scorer that's physical, that can skate, he's a man. So, when you got players like that at that age, they can do damage. So, if I'm going to give any team an edge, it'd probably be Winnipeg.
We were having a conversation earlier in the show. Evander Kane came out with some comments in a story in the Mercury News about the perception of players in the league and how they're viewed through a prism based on race. I'll read you his quote so you have some context. He said, "It's something that's been done before by many athletes. Because I was in Winnipeg, in a Canadian city, it obviously bothered some people. Whilst Welker is at Kentucky Derby throwing money." He went on to say...
He's talking about the money photo that he took on Instagram.
Yeah, he's considered a great guy, fun and charismatic. If you don't acknowledge to some degree you're living in the shadows, it's an older mentality and something that hasn't caught up to... There's nothing wrong with lights, camera, action and embracing the entertainment side of sports. Unfortunately, we don't have enough guys who want to do that or think it's important to do that. If you look at the 4 major sports, that's why hockey ranks 4th. That was Evander Kane's comments. And you're a guy who does a lot of the same things a guy like Brett Burns would do, as a great character. But speaking from my perception, you aren't often viewed the same way as other players. Do you feel there's credence in what Evander was saying, what he was expressing?
Well, you know what? I believe that every player is going to have individual experiences, regardless of the color of your skin. Everybody goes through different experiences throughout the league. There are definitely times throughout my career where, there are things that maybe don't happen for you or don't, in life. I mean, there are things that don't happen for you or go your way. What are the reasons for those things not happening? Nobody knows, right? I mean, you're not on the opposite end looking through the prism, understanding what people are thinking. So, I'm never one to jump to a conclusion to put people in a category of what type of people they are or why I think they think certain way or why they do certain things. I can't do that unless somebody shows their colors. But what I can do is I often have a term that I use, and it's I use it not just with people of color in life or in sports. I use it with everybody, and I say, tax season. It's April 15th. But that doesn't mean you can't write things off in September or October. Like, there's a lot of different things that happen that you're going to get rattled with in your life, a lot of things that happen around you. I just choose to write a lot of things off. Like, at the end of the day, you have a job to do. I go out. I want to be the best player on the ice every day. Your peers know. They know who you are and what you're all about. That's the most important thing to me. At the end of the day, whether it's RDS or TSN or Sportsnet, they're going to have different reporters that are going to come out and create an opinion, and that's all it is. It's a subjective opinion. We talk about individual awards in the league. To be honest with you, it's subjective. It's based on opinions. It's not always based on the truth and the fact of things that happen. So in life, you got to realize when things are objective and subjective. And when they're subjective, you got to learn when tax season is and understand that it doesn't need to be tax season to write off things that you don't agree with.
Right, you talk about being subjective, but we both know that the opinion amongst the mandem is that, our guy is getting a raw deal. For the game to continue to grow, and we use the hashtag Hockey's for Everyone, do we need to embrace more personalities so that there are more unique fans?
I think that hockey has continued to change in different ways, but it's like, where do we want hockey to change, right? We want it to continue to grow. I think the respect in the game is not something that needs to change. I think there's a ton of respect in the game. I mean, you see it. Hockey's one of the only sports where guys can go and play a game, kill each other, and go and have a beer after the game, right? Or go have, a glass of Coca-Cola or something like that if you don't like alcohol. But whatever it is, we have that camaraderie in hockey. But, yeah, there are times off the ice where I think that, we can expand a little bit. We can do different things, but you have to encourage those things. And I think the league has done it, but it's not just the league. I mean, you can't just look at someone like Gary Bettman, and everybody always says, oh, Gary Bettman's got to do this or do that. I think it's just us as peers as well. It starts with players, and players have to make other players feel comfortable about doing other things and having personality and saying things and speaking their mind. That's important too. And then I think that becomes an extension to coaches, who probably have a lot of influence in the game. And we see it. We look around the league today. There's so many coaches that have been around such a long time. And, they're coaches that when they get fired, they end up somewhere else. So they're very impactful, too, in how they think. And I think they can have an influence on players and what they do. So it's not just about the league. I think sometimes people just look at the front office and look at the commissioner and look at people that are, gatekeepers in our game, running our game. But I think that people that have a ton of impact as well are just the players and coaches, general managers. I think how they conduct their team, that's where it all starts. They control who goes on the ice. They control who are on the teams, all those things. And those people need to also encourage that part of our game as well and realize that it is important. Now, that doesn't mean that we want guys going out and doing crazy things. Hockey is one of the better sports in the world where players are pretty responsible off the ice and pretty responsible around the game. That's important, but we also need to show that we can connect with different people and different communities and fan base and continue to grow our fan base. And we got to understand that we got to show our personality to do that, because if we want to grow our game, we're going to have to connect with people that don't resonate normally with hockey players or hockey fans. They're going to have to connect with us. And in order for us to do that, we got to connect with them.
That's
and show them
it's really well
something.
said. Really well said. Really well said, PK, and thank you for joining us. We run out of time here. We got to run to break, but thanks again.
You guys don't want to sit and talk for another hour? I got an hour. Look, dude, I had a nap it was International Nap Day or whatever it was. I napped for 2.5 hours, so I'm ready to go.
That's why we don't have any time.
Okay, great. Well, you
Thanks,
know what?
pal.
I'll find something else to do.
Thank you.
All good, guys. Thanks, Eric.